Got interested.
Hey, Pater Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here to give you my reactions to the Nintendo Direct presentation for E3 2019. I'm not a Nintendo fan. I haven't been a Nintendo fan for years, but I do like to keep track of what they're doing, both for my own sake, in case I might want to come back and, get one of their consoles at some point, and also I've got two young boys who might be in the market for one at some point. There wasn't a lot that really spoke to me, as it were, in this event, and I don't know. I'm wondering if this event spoke to Nintendo gamers in general. Unlike previous Nintendo Directs that have been around E3, at least that I remember, it didn't seem to have one big title that was going to be widely exciting to a lot of different fans. Instead, they recently did Nintendo Directs for both Super Mario Maker 2 and Pokemon Sword and Shield, which definitely have huge audiences, but maybe they recognized that they had more specific audiences as well, and so didn't want them in this, event, or maybe they just wanted to give them a full presentation and make room for a variety of games here. If I were to guess at their strategy this time around, it seemed to be like, we're trying to let all kinds of gamers know that there is content for them on the Nintendo Switch. And I think if that was their goal, they probably succeeded. There did seem to be a wide variety of game types presented here. They started out, I'm not going to go through everything, I'll mostly just stick to my highlights, but they started out by announcing that the hero from the recent Dragon Quest game, Dragon Quest XI, is going to be coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Then they showcased Dragon Quest XI coming to Switch this fall. Then Doug Bowser was introduced, and he's the new, I think, Nintendo President of America, CEO, or whatever, the head honcho, the U.S. guy for Nintendo, as Reggie Fils-Aimé has retired. And he came on, was just kind of introduced through a little funny cartoon bit, and then they just kind of moved on. We didn't really get a sense of who he was or what he's all about. But the next thing that caught my eye after they did Luigi's Mansion, which maybe was kind of like their quote-unquote big game this time, I'm not sure, but Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Tactics. There's a Dark Crystal TV series that's coming to Netflix, and this is certainly going to be coinciding with that in some way. And I didn't see, I'll have to double check, I didn't see a release date. Dang it, I meant to look that up. Sorry about that. Anyway, this was probably the game that stuck out to me the most as something I would be interested in playing. It's not that I'm a huge Dark Crystal fan, but I do like tactics games and I do like fantasy games, and you combine the two together and you're at the very least going to have my interest. And so if I did have a Switch, this one would definitely be one I would want to be hearing a lot more about. Let's see, after that we had Link's Awakening coming September 20th with a dungeon building component. That's the remake of the Game Boy Classic, and so the dungeon building component looks like it could be kind of a neat thing to add on. Then a bunch of other games. They had this interesting little moment where one of the dudes from Nintendo Japan, maybe the head honcho over there, I can't remember his name, came out and presented Resident Evil, and he said something like, "Wouldn't it be fun or interesting to play Resident Evil in a location like this?" And then they show this kind of commercial basically for Resident Evil on Switch that features these two, young teenagers or young adults or whatever going into a haunted house and setting up the Switch and putting the screen on its stand, sitting up at the table, and then they're playing this one-player game together, and they're being all scared and nervous, and they're trading the controller back and forth. And I'm like, what is this commercial saying? It's it's saying, hey, go to a haunted house where you can, or like an old house or whatever, and you can play this game together on a teeny tiny screen and hand the controller back and forth. It was weird. It was a weird way, in my mind, to promote Resident Evil. But evidently, Resident Evil 5 and 6 are coming to the Switch. So for Resident Evil fans and Switch fans, that's probably cool news. I just thought it was a really weird way to present it. Anyway, the next game that caught my attention was Contra Rogue Core, coming September 24th. But it didn't necessarily catch my attention in a good way. I mean, we haven't seen really, I don't think we've seen a new entry of the Contra franchise in a long time. And this one looked like, as far as the textures go, it looked like an Xbox 360 game, you know, and I know that the Switch is capable of far better than Xbox 360 graphics. So it just looked weird and like a double A, almost indie quality in terms of like the budget that was behind it. Yeah, just very interesting. Then they advertised also the Contra Anniversary Collection, which is available on the Switch later today in the eShop or whatever. Yeah, that was just a weird kind of game. And then skip a bunch of stuff like anime inspired stuff that doesn't interest me, Pokemon stuff. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 coming July 19th showed more gameplay of this one, and after seeing Square Enix's presentation, at least with a CG cinematic for the upcoming Avengers game that's coming next year, this one more firmly stood apart in my mind for what it was, for the tone it's going for. It's definitely leaning into what I remember the tone being of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1. I didn't play 2, but in the original, it was super Saturday morning comic booky. It had a very kind of like over-the-top, cartoony type of vibe, you know, the over-exaggerated voices and, you know, that kind of thing. And it seems like that's going to be carrying over into Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, whereas the Avengers game from Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix looks like it's going to be for, you know, much more serious and more of an adult audience and a heavier story, you know. But this looks like, I mean, if I was into the Ultimate Alliance game still, if I had a Switch, this would definitely be on my radar at the very least. Let's see. Finally, they showed a sizzle reel with a bunch of games coming to Nintendo Switch. Again, showcasing, I think, the variety of game types that are available for those, you know, who are considering a Switch. And then they ended with a little teaser to the sequel to the Breath of the Wild, which all they said after this kind of cinematic, you know, teaser was the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is in development. And I guess maybe for general audiences that would be big news, but I'm just thinking, you know, from a common sense standpoint, I'm like, of course it's in development. I hope it's been development before you announced it now. Because that game was a huge success. So that didn't strike me as very interesting news to end on. But yeah, it's despite the breadth of variety in games, Nintendo just still isn't the platform for me. I think that ultimately, even though there's a lot of different games that... let me put it this way. There are games for every type of gamer probably on the Switch, but far from every game is available on the Switch. The Switch is still never going to be, I don't think, the console that anybody goes to just kind of, in general, keep up with all the best games that are coming out for the current console generation. I mean, it's just not going to be that. But I do think that there's probably something for every type of gamer on the Switch these days, and I think that this event certainly showcased that. Let's talk about my jaded predictions and unrealistic wishes and see which ones came true. My only jaded prediction was that the Direct would largely focus on one or more cute Nintendo intellectual properties that don't interest me. No, that didn't come true. There were lots of different games that were not cute and not exclusively Nintendo IPs, but mostly still didn't interest me. So just a little partial fulfillment there. My first wish was that they would change their plans for legacy games. You know, they've got this subscription service that gives you very limited access, and only if you're subscribing on an ongoing basis, you know, to get access to the classic games from Nintendo's history. I want them all to be available just to outright purchase on like a digital shop of some kind, and there seems to be no indication they're heading that direction anytime soon. They did make the Collection of Mana available, but I mean, that's not what I mean. I'm not talking about remasters remasters and ports of old games. I'm talking about making all of them ported and available to play on the Switch through some kind of emulation on the Switch. Then my next wish, or my last wish, was that Doug Bowser will be in the Direct and make a great first impression with fans and introduce some updated thinking when it comes to how Nintendo does business, protects their IP, and provides services to fans. Bring a freshness that shows an interest in attracting more than just kids and those who already love Nintendo and their existing properties. Well, Doug Bowser was there, and that's about it. I didn't get a sense of who he was, what really drives him, what he especially likes about Nintendo. We just didn't get kind of the introduction to Doug Bowser that I thought we might get. I know that this event isn't really about showcasing a person, but I was still hoping that we'd get just a little bit more of a sense of who he is, and what he's about. So, and we certainly didn't get any indication that he's bringing any kind of change or fresh air to Nintendo as a company. All right, those are my thoughts. Still coming are my reactions to the PC Gaming Show, Devolver Digital's event, Limited Run Games event, and the Kind of Funny Games showcase, plus my favorite games and hidden gems of E3. All that coming throughout this week. I hope you stick around for that. And please do check out Spirit Blade Legacy Edition. That's our free genre-bending sci-fi fantasy audio drama that we're making available now. You can start listening to it right after you finish watching and listening to me right here at Christian Geek Central. Oh, no, where are we at? YouTube.com/Christian Geek Central. Thanks. Bye-bye. I've created some new tiers for our Patreon. On top of many of our original perks, I've added Discord live events, spoiler chat videos, and more. You can get all the info at patreon.com/SpiritBladeProductions.